Alrighty, perfect. All right, let me know if you guys have any issues seeing my screen or if you guys can't hear me. Just feel free to holler out and let me know. All right, so we're going to go ahead and cover the custom report engine. I'll give you a brief overlook of what that custom report engine does, what it looks like, and then I'll also note the differences between Telerik and also fast reports. So custom reports, they live on the government side only. Only government users can create custom reports. All custom reports live within the district library. And custom reports, when you're working with custom reports, there's two main modules that you'll be working in. One is right here, the custom reports module. This is the area where you'll see all your templates for Telerik and for fast reports. Down below that, we have another module called query definitions. This module contains all the custom SQL statements that users make that run across our database, so they can grab any data from our tables that they need. They can export that into an Excel spreadsheet, but you can also run your reports on these specific query definitions. I'll show you what that looks like later on as we start building a report. This is only for district reports only. So let's go ahead and hop into the custom reports module. And so when you first enter in, you'll see all the templates for fast reports. Nothing of Telerik quite yet. In order to actually see the Telerik templates, you have to click on this button that says UAT Designer. We did this so that you can run two instances of RMS, so you can see the old fast report templates and you can run them side by side with the Telerik ones. That way you can kind of really find a good fast way to copy and create, or recreate, not copy, recreate your Telerik report. And so let's go ahead and hop into this area here. So right here, I can see all the Telerik templates that we've created so far in the custom reports. These are all just test templates right now. To add a custom report, it's real easy. You just click the add button here, and this will bring you to the Telerik report edit view. This looks very similar to what fast reports looks like as well. I'm not sure how familiar all of you are with fast reports, but these two screens look almost exactly identical. Really, the only difference that you'd probably tell right off the bat would be this area right here. There's a blue tile that allows you to select what contract you want to run your reports against if you're using a report for specifically contract. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this screen a little bit. So at the top, you have your report title. You can name your report whatever you want. You can put the author's name of the report. Right here, we have our report type. Custom reports, while only government users can create reports, contractors can actually see those custom reports if you want them to. And so depending on the option that you select here will determine where the report will lie. So if you select contract, that report will lie on the contract reports. If you select the district side, then it'll lie in the summary reports area. And so I'm going to select contract report. Right now, I'm going to start off building us a contract report. Now, there is a key difference here with our report types for Telerik and fast reports for our report types. One of them being is our required collections. This area here is used to specify what data you need for your report. Previously with fast reports, you would be able to see all the collections when you would look at the lookup here. You'd see collections for both district level data and contract level data. We filtered all those out so that way you don't have to go back and forth to see what's contract and what's district. The other difference that Telerik has compared to fast reports is we've actually have completed the ability to use contract collections. In fast reports, you have the option to add contract collections, but the collections actually never made it to the report designer. And so you couldn't really create a contract custom report. So that is definitely a pro that we have now in the Telerik custom engine. The next option that we have is the report menu. You can select this on the contract and summary screens. There are these descriptors that are there that group the reports in these different areas for administration, finances, and etc. To the right of that, we have our report rec GUID. This is the unique identifier for that report. This is important as well. So Telerik when you launch the Telerik Report Designer, what we do is we create a blank template for you to use, and we actually bring it down to the user's machine. And we use this path right here, Windows C program files, RMS3, TR reports templates. This could change if the user changed their path, but this is the default one. This ending will always stay the same. And the reason for this is we allow users, you can actually edit and move around your template only offline if you're working on a template and you just want to move things around. You won't be able to see the data, but you'll still be able to work on those things offline. You can copy reports, you can create backups, you could even send these report files with other users. We actually have functionality similar to that within RMS using our asset store, where you can send different report templates across multiple districts. So just a good thing to note there. All right, down below our rec GUID, we have 3 flags under construction. Well, this is marked. This report won't show up, and depending on the report type, it won't show up in that contract area or that summary area. And then, like I said, you can toggle these 2 flags if you want the government to be able to see it, or if you want the contractor, or you can select both. We have an area that you can write a quick description of what your report does. Now, down at the bottom, we have 3 buttons here. The first one is to open the standalone Telerik Designer. There's no need to install that designer. We include it in the patch. Currently, it's out in the pre-release. So if you have access to that pre-release, you can actually run the custom report engine right now. That's currently what I'm running on. Down below that, we have the option to copy report templates. You can copy the report templates from any report that's currently out in the pre-release. And this is a good way if there's a report that you just want to tweak a little bit, you can copy that template. It won't bring the data down, but it will bring the actual template itself. It'll bring the report objects. You'll have to add the data yourself, and I'll show you what that looks like in terms of creating a report and adding data to it. Same thing for users. You can copy other users' reports. If someone makes a really awesome report and you just want to tweak it a little bit, you can do that by just copying their report. It's a good way to be able to mess with things without changing someone's report unintentionally. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to create a report right now. And specifically, we're going to create a contract report real quick. And I'm going to mimic this screen here in RMS. This is the subcontractor screen. And I'm going to create a report that shows all the subcontractors within this contract. I'm going to display their full name, their responsibility code, and their subcontractor amount. And so what we need to do, or what we need to know, is we need to know what collection that this particular view uses. And so we can view all of our collections here, but one of the biggest questions that we get asked at the RMS Center is, well, how do I know what table I need to use, or what collection do I need to use? We have this cool shortcut. It's Control right click. That's Control right click right there. And you'll see this UI pop up. You'll see that we have our data source. This is the table name, or rather the collection name that you would see on this lookup. And then you can see the field names that are within that table. On some screens, you'll see a field name that has a _X. Those are actually for developers only. Those aren't included in the collections when you bring them into your Telerik template. So sometimes we do get questions on that, or why is this field not working? You have to make sure that they don't have that suffix at the end, _X. So I'm going to go ahead and find that collection, KTR desk, so we can create our subcontractor report. And I'm going to go ahead and add our collection. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assign our report to a contract. This is just so that we can run data. This is needed for contract reports. You won't have to set this field if you're doing a district report. But for right now, it's going to run data against this contract, 1660. So let's go ahead and launch our report designer. So like I said, that our report designer, it's going to bring the file down. It's just telling you that that's where that report is going to lie in that file path that I showed you earlier. All right. So right off the bat, this is what you'll see when you first open up Telerik. We automatically load up a blank boiler template for you to use. This is a portrait template. Nothing too special about the template. Before we hop in and start actually creating our report, I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the tool a little bit. You'll see it looks a little bit similar to fast reports. We have our interface where we can drag and move our report objects. You can enter in different names for your text boxes. This is how you interact with your report template. To the right of that, we have our panel for our data explorer. This will show you the data source that's currently in your report template. These are the data sets that are currently added within the template. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Down on this little tab right here, we have our report explorer. This shows you all the report objects within your report template. This is a good way to find objects if you need to. You could click on this and you'll see that it highlights it here on the side, right? We can grab our table or text boxes. It's a good way to interact with our template. Down below that, we have our properties panel, and this panel is super useful. You can see all the properties that each report object has. You can change things like background color, text color. There's bindings that you can do. We'll talk a little bit about that as well in just a second. A very, very useful panel that Telerik has. To the left of that, we can see all the data sources in our template. Currently, right now, we only have one data source that's already been loaded up into our template. And then down below that, we have our group explorer. This shows you if there are any groupings within the object that you're selecting. Since we're selecting the table, we see that we do have a group there. If I don't select it, you'll see that changes. And then just a side note on here, for the properties window, the template itself actually has properties as well. So for example, this is always a portrait mode that we set up by default. You can actually change this by going down to the page settings and clicking on that 3 dots, and then you can change the orientation of your paper or of your report. You can also change the size and the margins as well. All right. Looking at the top, we have our toolbar, and your toolbar changes depending on the tabs that you select. We have our preview mode, and this will actually show you, once when we load up our report with data, it'll actually show you and display the data. For this example, we'll see the data in 1660, which is a test contract that we have in T2. You have lots of formatting options, a lot like Microsoft Word. You have alignment options, text color options. To the right of that, there's a lot of layout options where you can center things, you can bring things forward, and then we also have border options. This is where you can highlight text objects, and then you can add a border. You see we have these borders now. You can select if you want to do just the border on the left, the right, the bottom, etc. And you can also change what the border looks like. On the next tab, we have our insert tab, and this is where you'll be adding your report objects. All the report objects for Telerik live on this particular tab. And so our first set we have is our table set, and this is what you'll probably be using for the bulk of most of your custom reports. This is the way that we bind our collections and our queries. We have a table already set right here, and I'll show you how to bind that to a collection in just a moment. You can add charts, maps, reports, and then there are other objects like text boxes, panels, shapes, and other objects right here, panels that you can add into your report. The next tab is our data tab, and this is one of the differences that you'll see, one of the key differences that you'll see from Telerik to fast reports. Before in fast reports, when you're creating a custom report, you would have to actually manually set what data source you added from the screen before. You'd have to click a button and a wizard would pop up, and then you'd have to set your data sources. And we actually have removed that step here in Telerik. We automatically add our data set to your template. And you can see that down here, we add a JSON data source. And then let's go ahead and actually look at that for just a second. So you can see here we have our collections that we added. We have KTR desk, which is the only collection we added. And then we have this object called RMS _ contract. And this is an object that we add to each report This changes depending if you select a district or contract. This is just for header information. And the way this works is you can click this drop down and you can see all the properties within that table. And it's a really handy tool for headers. You can just easily drag and drop one of the properties on here, and you can view right here. I just grabbed the contract ID. And if I preview that right now, you'll see that it'll say 1660. Oh, sorry, that was the contract number, not the ID. All right. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed is that Telerik, or not Telerik, that this collection here, KTR_desk, does not have a dropdown. And the reason being is that this is a list object. Telerik does not know how to drill down into list objects. It can't see the properties. And so this is where you really kind of want to run side by side two instances of RMS. That way you can see the properties of the table that you're working in. So for example, this screen right here, I'm going to go ahead and minimize these a little bit. Hopefully that's not too small on you guys' screen. Let's go ahead and increase this a little bit. All right. So in order for Telerik to know to iterate through that list, we have to tell it to by using one of those list items that we saw in the insert tab. We have to use either a table, a crosstab, or a list. And in order to bind a collection to a table, all you have to do is select the table. Right now, I'm only selecting the text box, but to select the table, you just click in this left-hand corner, or you can use the Report Explorer. And all you have to do is go to the Properties panel, click on Bindings, and then add a new binding. And binding is a great way to interact with your reports. I think it's actually one of the pros that Telerik has over fast reports. And what it does is it allows you to see all the properties for that specific report object and bind it to some expression. For example, you can bind it to the background color, and depending, let's say you're making a financial report, you can make a binding to the background color to display the background color always to be green or red if you know, there's a current work amount or something at a certain level. Really handy tool that Telerik has. But in order to bind it to our data source, I'm going to go ahead and select the property right here, data source, and I'm going to set our expression to the collection that we added, which is KTR_desk. Alrighty, so now we're ready to enter into our fields into our table. And so the way to do this is you have to use the syntax that Telerik has, and they started off with this equals fields dot. This is the syntax that Telerik uses to know that I'm going to use a field of that collection that we brought in. Now, all you have to do is enter in the field name. So in this case, I'm going to make this column the full name. The next column, I'm going to make the responsibility code, which is the KTR code. And then the last one is going to be the subcontractor's work amount, which is the work amount for that specific table. So all I have to do is type in the property name. And we'll do the same here. And now if I go back to our home tab and click preview, oops, okay, I have a typo here. There we go. You'll see our report now has our data coming from that screen. Now, you might notice that this is kind of on a continuous page. By default on their preview, it runs on one page. If you want to see what it looks like on a PDF view or print preview, they have that here, and you can see the report span across multiple pages like you would on the contract reports area or summary reports area. And this is kind of the standard way of creating a contract report. You guys got any questions so far before we move on to our summary report? All right, I will take the silence for now. All right, so this is how you create a contract report. In order to save your report, all you have to do is close out of the designer. You don't have to save it in the designer. RMS will actually prompt up a dialog for you and save it to our database. So every time now that you click Launch Telerik Report Designer, it'll always grab that report template. Let's go ahead and look at creating a summary report. And so before I add a report template here for our summary report, I'm going to actually show you how to create custom query in RMS. So I'm going to go ahead and back out. Let's go maximize the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and enter into query definitions. Now, our custom report for Telerik, it does use the custom queries that were even made for fast reports as well. So there's no need to change the custom queries if you've already built one, which is really awesome. I know there are some complex queries out there that I definitely know that a lot of users would not want to recreate. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a query definition here. And I'm going to add a query definition that just grabs a list of transmittals within the district. All right. So at the top, we have the title of our query. You can, again, add a description of what that query does. And right here, we have where we can actually start writing our query. You can click this icon so you can have a little bit more screen real estate to work with. For the sake of time, I actually prepared a query for us, so you don't have to watch me misspell things or type things out. So let me go ahead and talk about this query just for a second and explain what this does. So this is a query for the transmittals. You can see that we're requesting the transmit table. I'm going to go ahead and pull up that screen so you can kind of see what that'll look like. Run them side by side. Oops. All right, I'm going to hit Control right click. Now I can see all the tables and fields. So like I said, we're just making a simple report that grabs a list of the transmittals within the district. I won't use all these fields in the report that I'm working on just for the sake of time for this specific meeting. But anyway, we got this table transmit, and you can see it right here at the top. We're doing a couple joins. We're doing a join on the contract table by contract ID, SR part, which is for our submittals. And we're doing that on our rec GUID for our transmittal. And then we're doing a join on our offices by our office ID. And then lastly, we have this where clause where we're filtering out to a specific office ID. This is standard SQL. You can see a lot of this online, how to write basic SQL. There is a special notation here that we included in RMS. We have parameters that you can add where it'll show you a prompt screen. And the way to use parameters is we use colon, and then you create a ID for that parameter. In this case, I'm going to create a parameter for office ID, and you can see the parameters here. So I'm going to just type in office ID, and then you just give your parameter a title, tell it what type it is, and then you can set a default value for what that parameter is. And now I'm going to go ahead and execute the query. So you can see every time that you run the report or this query, you'll always see this prompt up view where you can enter in any office ID that you want. So now if I execute the query, I'll now get a list of all the transmittals for that specific office. So now that my query is built, I can begin using this query within the district custom reports. Again, you don't have to create a query now to use it as a district report. There are district collections, but we find that most users want specific data sets, and so they'll write their queries. So let's go ahead and go back to the custom reports module. We're going to click on UAT designer to get to the Telerik reports. And I'm going to go ahead and just add another report here. All right. And our report type is automatically set to district. You can change this at any time. I'm going to go ahead and add that collection that I just added. And now I'm going to click on Launch Telerik Report Designer. And again, we see that pop-up. This pop-up will appear even if you set this in the contract reports area and the subcontractor area. This is so that Telerik knows what data set to run against for that specific report. Alrighty. So everything else inside of Telerik is the same as for a contract report. I'll go ahead and run through and just create a quick report of what that transmittal report would look like. And so again, I'm going to select my table, and I'm going to bind my table to the collection that I just added, or rather the custom query. So I'm going to select data source of my properties, and I'm going to select the transmittals query. I'm going to select OK. And then now I could just type in my fields. Your fields have to be exactly as your query is. In this case, I uppercased everything. So I'm going to go ahead and uppercase my fields. And date in. And now if I preview it, you'll see that I now have all the transmittals, including their date in and date out. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed is that this formatting looks really strange because it has the time. Telerik has some awesome formatting tools, just like Fast Reports did. Actually, in my opinion, I think Telerik's formatting tools are a little bit better. You can format objects by right-clicking the object that you want to format and selecting format. You'll see a prompt up screen that comes up, and you have a number of different options of formatting those report objects. You can format them as numbers. You can change how many decimal places show up. You could format it as currency, date and time, percentages, scientific, and you could even create your own custom formats for numbers and date time. And they even have a display for you so you can see it. So if I wanted a slash here and a dot, you can see how this custom format would work. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and use their standard date time for both of these. And so now when I preview it, you'll see that it's now formatted. It cuts off that extra time information that we had, and the report looks a little bit better. And so yeah, that's kind of the basis of our Telerik report custom engine in a nutshell. A little bit similar to Fast Reports, but there are some big differences. Obviously, the biggest difference is right when you open up the report designer. All the tools are different and things like that. So we're looking forward to kind of hearing what kind of feedback you guys have as you guys kind of start to dive into this tool. I know it can seem like a lot, but once when you dive in a little bit, it does start to make sense. I promise you it does. So are there any questions before we dismiss?
So Ryan, for Claire, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, so for clarity's sake, can you explain how the patch process works and how they'll get the tool? I know you briefly mentioned it. I just wanted to kind of give some reassurance on that one, and then I also wanted to go through our testing process.
Gotcha. So I don't remember exactly the pre-release process. I would have to ask Paul on that one. But once when you get the pre-release, let me see here if I can see it. I know there's a standard path that you have to change. Let me see here really quickly. Okay. So one way to get the pre-release is that you can actually make a pre-release launcher icon like I did here. So what you can do is you can copy the launcher icon that you have. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. You can copy it. And what you have to do is go to properties. Let me grab this here first. Okay, /P. So what you have to do is change this target path under properties. If you right click and select properties, what you have to do is on the target path, just hit /P, and this will tell the launcher to, this will tell the launcher to run the pre-release, not the current release. And so all you have to do is set that path, and then you can name it RMS launcher pre-release like I have here. I think we have a few documentation or a few documents out there that shows you how to do this. I can get with Paul to see if we can send that out to you guys. And then all you have to do is click on that, and then it'll run the pre-release version, and then you'll have access to the custom reports, and then you can see those screens that I just showed you there.
So our ask is for support during our UAT testing with this, and as we go through this being so different, Ryan and Jennifer will assist with questions that you ask. If you email Paul and Ryan and I, we'll play traffic cop to make sure everything gets properly addressed. We want to make sure that you get what you need and that we don't hold up the process for getting this done. And then we're giving our UAT for this process of 2 weeks. And then the last week will include general training for all the users. Any questions? We will post this video up on the RMS website. We will provide that link through emails so that you know when it's up there as well, but we're only providing it to the individuals that will be supporting UAT testing. You guys are so quiet, it's almost scary.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't lose everyone.
I'm still here. You're doing good.
Yeah, you lost me about 2 minutes in, but as long as I can see a video again and watch it, I'll pick it up.
Okay.
Awesome.
And like I said, if you're like, hey, I need some help with this, raise your hands, shoot out that email, and we'll make sure you get what you need. This is important to all of us. We got some of Ryan's time put aside in the bucket for this. All right, if you guys don't have any questions, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.